Right, we now come to the next statement. I call Ellie Reeves, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, the 19th of July, we saw a Crowdstrike software update on Microsoft systems result in a major global IT outage. It caused significant impacts around the world. Impacts were seen in the transport sector, with flights grounded in Europe, the US, and delays and cancellations here in the UK. On rail, live departure boards were impacted during the morning rush hour, and some media outlets lost the ability to provide live coverage. This caused substantial inconvenience for passengers hoping to travel for the summer holiday getaway on the busiest travel weekend of the year. Airports and airlines across the UK had measures in place to maintain safe operations, support passenger welfare, extend operating hours and deploy additional staff to support late-running operations to keep people moving where possible. As with all incidents, the sector will review their response and implement any learnings. More concerningly, large parts of the local UK healthcare system lost access to test results and appointment information, affecting mostly GP services. Tried and tested NHS contingency plans were enacted, and services are expected to be operating at full capacity in the next few days. Small businesses without dedicated IT support systems were heavily impacted due to disruption to card-only payment systems and ATMs, with many resorting to operate with cash only while firms worked to fix their systems. Many firms were able to get back online quickly, and the remaining are expected to restore operations this week. Officials from the National Cyber Security Centre quickly established the outages were not as the result of either a security incident or malicious cyber activity. The cause was instead identified to be a flawed Crowdstrike software update which caused Windows machines to crash. On Friday morning, Crowdstrike issued guidance on how to solve the problem, giving users a manual fix for each affected device or system. I now believe Crowdstrike is in the process of implementing an automated update which can be applied remotely and should therefore speed up recovery. However, there are still residual impacts from the failed update, and it's important that we continue to monitor the situation and the longer-term impacts to UK sectors and secondary impacts from international disruption. Ever since the incident occurred, the Government has worked closely with both Microsoft and Crowdstrike. My Cabinet Office officials have been leading coordination of the Government response across all impacted sectors of the economy. This included close monitoring of affected public services to ensure business continuity plans were enacted and services were supported as they came back online. 2 COBRA senior officials meetings were also convened on Friday to coordinate the response, and officials from across Her Majesty's Government met over the weekend to continuously monitor the impacts and the recovery process. I'm pleased to say that Government services and the online services that Government provides were and remain largely unaffected. My colleagues, including the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, the Health Secretary and Transport Secretary, attended briefings with officials throughout, and the Prime Minister was kept informed. The majority of the sectors that were impacted have now mostly recovered. The UK transport system, aviation, rail, road, maritime is running normally. NHS staff worked hard over the course of Friday and the weekend to quickly apply the fixes required, and my colleagues in the Department for Health and Social Care have confirmed that systems are now back online, including for GPs. Their advice is that patients should continue to attend their appointments unless told not to. There may still be some delays, and GPs will need to rebook appointments that could not be made during the IT outage. The public should continue to contact their GPs in the normal way. However, as IT systems are complex, we can expect that minor disruption will continue in some areas while systems continue to recover, but my officials expect these to be resolved in the next couple of days. I'd like to extend my thanks to everyone who has worked so hard to get systems up and running again, and all staff who have worked tirelessly to support individuals impacted by the outage. Following this incident, the Cabinet Office will work with the National Cyber Security Centre and other partners across government to review the lessons learned. The Central Digital and Data Office will work with the NCSC to implement any improvements to the existing response plans to cover both technical resilience features as well as cyber. The COBRA unit will work with departments to support their processes for establishing how the organisations and sectors they represent manage the impacts of the outage and what lessons have been learnt. As soon as this government was elected, we took immediate steps to begin legislating to protect public services and the third-party services they use. Our Cyber Security and Resilience Bill, including in the King's Speech, will strengthen our defences and ensure that more essential digital services than ever before are protected. For example, it will look at expanding the remit of the existing regulation, putting regulators on a stronger footing, and increasing reporting requirements to build a better picture in government of cyber threats. Technology failures can be as disruptive as cyber attacks, and the move to create the Centre for Digital Government within DCIT is aimed at creating a more resilient digital public sector. What this incident shows is how dependent the modern world is on complex and interconnected IT systems, and how essential preparedness for such events is, including business continuity planning. Notwithstanding the immense frustration and inconvenience the outage has caused, I'm pleased to see that effective contingency plans mitigated the potentially very, very serious impacts this outage could have had. I'm pleased also that there is to be a comprehensive process to identify the lessons from this episode. I hope these will lead to improvements which both help prevent similar incidents and further improve our resilience to system outages and the impacts they can have. And in this spirit, Madam Deputy Speaker, I commend this statement to the House.
Oliver Dowden.
Well, may I begin by welcoming the Honourable Lady to her role and thank her for her advanced state of the statement. In that role, I know she will be supported by a dedicated team of civil servants who represent the very best of public service, and I have no doubt that they will serve her as well as they did me. But she will also be aware of the enormous challenges facing this government and governments around the world in relation to cyber security. As I warned when I was the responsible minister, threats to public services and critical national infrastructure come from a range of challenges, from hostile state actors to human error and design flaws. Last week, we saw these challenges vividly brought to life. Following the corrupted antivirus update by Crowdstrike on Friday, 8.5 million Microsoft devices globally were rendered unusable. This left airports disrupted, patient records temporarily lost, and GPs unable to access important patient data, creating significant backlogs. This is more than an inconvenience, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to pay tribute to all those working in our public services for the efforts they undertook over the weekend to restore these services, and to the work of dedicated cyber specialists across government, including in the National Cyber Security Centre. In government, we undertook a wide range of measures to enhance the nation's cyber security, creating the National Cyber Security Centre, introducing Secure by Design, setting cyber resilience targets, launching GovAssure, and transforming the oversight of governmental cyber security. And now I note, as the Honourable Lady said, that the government intends to build on this progress by bringing forward a cyber security and resilience bill. Will the Minister therefore outline the timetable for this bill? And will the government consider mandatory cyber security targets for the UK public sector? And is the government considering obligations to ensure that infrastructure is designed to be resilient against common cause problems such as this one? What steps are being taken to enhance cybersecurity in the devolved administration and in parts of the public sector such as the NHS, which are operationally independent? And specifically in relation to this incident, what assessment has been made of the prevalence of Crowdstrike within critical national infrastructure? And what further reassurances can the government give in relation to the timetable for full recovery of key systems and data? In particular, can the Minister assure employees that this month's payroll will not be adversely affected? Britain's cyber industry is world-leading, Cybersecurity now employs over 60,000 people and brings in nearly £12 billion worth of revenue annually. This transformation was in part due to our £5.3 billion investment, which launched the country's first national cybersecurity strategy. I therefore urge the government, and I see the Chancellor in her place, to continue such investment. Incidents such as Crowdstrike should not deter us from the path of progress. We must embrace digitalisation and the huge improvements in public services that it offers. Indeed, the adoption of artificial intelligence across government is the closest thing we have to a silver bullet for public sector productivity. However, if we are to command public confidence, people must be assured that technology is safe, secure, and reliable. And incidents such as this demonstrate how reliant the government and public services are on large technology companies and how much responsibility they have for the services that have become critical to people's lives and livelihoods. That's why, in government, I called for us to work more closely with leading technology firms to address these shared challenges. The best solution is partnership. So to that end, what further engagement will the Minister undertake with Microsoft and Crowdstrike and the wider sector to ensure there is no such recurrence? The task for us all is to build on existing progress that has transformed Britain's cyber defences and to enhance protections for British families, businesses, and indeed the very heart of government. And in that mission, the government can rely on the support of these benches.
I thank the Shadow Minister for his contribution and his questions, and particularly I would echo the thanks to all of those involved across the civil service and departments in dealing with the outage last Friday and mitigating the effects of it. I set out in my opening comments that our cybersecurity and resilience bill, which was included in the King's speech, will strengthen our defences and ensure that more digital services are protected, and that is a priority for this government. The bill will look at expanding the remit of existing regulation, putting regulators on a stronger footing and increasing reporting requirements so that we can build a better picture in government of cyber threats. And we'll also consider the implications of Friday's incident as we develop that legislation. But rest assured that we are working across government in relation to this to ensure resilience. As the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster said in his statement on the COVID Inquiry Module 1 report, he will lead a review to assess our national resilience against the full range of risks that the UK faces, and that includes cyber risks.
Onwurah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it is a great pleasure to see the Minister in her place. As she said, the Crowdstrike outage is a reminder of the way in which technology is so integrated into our lives, making all our lives better, but also our dependence on standards of development, deployment and integration of new technology, which are largely not visible to us. I was reassured to hear of the steps that government and businesses have been taken to mitigate the impact, but I fear that small businesses and consumers do not have the same resources. So could the Minister tell us, or does she agree, that you shouldn't have to be able to reboot from a blue screen in order to enjoy the benefits of technology? And will her government move to ensure that consumers are better protected?
Go ahead.
I thank my honourable friend, for that contribution, and also want to acknowledge all of the work that she has done in this area. It has been hugely valuable. She makes some really important points about making sure that consumers and small businesses are protected, as well as government departments and bigger business, and I'm sure that will be form part of the lessons learned from this incident, but also feed in to the bill that we'll be introducing.
Daisy Cooper.
Deputy Speaker, it's my first opportunity to welcome ministers to their places, and thank you for advance sight of the statement. I want to focus on the impact on the NHS in particular, and I'm sure my thanks and that of the entire House goes to all NHS staff who've been scrambling to deal with urgent inquiries from distressed patients. I wonder if I might press ministers for assurances on two particular patient groups who suffer from the need for time-critical care. First of all, there are some patients who always require blood test results before they commence urgent treatment or operations, and I wonder if there are any assurances on what attention they've been given by the NHS, both now and in any future scenarios. And secondly, those patients who are at extreme risk of getting an extremely ill from getting COVID. Since the last government scrapped the COVID medicines delivery unit, many vulnerable patients have been struggling to get the COVID antivirals they need from their GPs in time. That situation is made much worse when this kind of disruption happens. I wonder if she could provide any assurances about any attention that NHS England has given to these two patient cohorts, and if not, whether she might be willing to meet with me to discuss what we might do in future.
I thank the honourable member for her question and highlighting the issues facing vulnerable patients. I'm pleased to report that there were no reported impacts to 111 or 999 services, and that patients were able to acknowledge emergency care if required. The majority of the impact to GP services were accessing patient records, GP appointments and prescriptions. Patients who couldn't access GP appointments were able to attend urgent care services, and GPs were able to issue paper prescriptions. But I will pass on her concerns to my colleagues in the Department of Health, because they are incredibly important issues, and we need to make sure that vulnerable patients are protected going forward.
Pamela Nash.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome both you to your very temporary position, and also to my honourable friend on the front bench, welcome her to her role. I'd like to ask if there's any further detail that the Minister could share with the House on the particular impact of this outage in Scotland, and ask her what conversations her department have had with the Scottish Government in recent days.
Thank you, and I welcome my honourable friend back to the House. It's fantastic to see her in her place, and rightly so. Thank you for the points that you have raised. They are very important and will be taken into account with the lessons learned.
David Mundell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I commend the Minister on her appointment. Does she agree with me that these events demonstrated that we are very far from being in a position to move into a cashless society? And given that the Chancellor is in her place, will she confirm that her government will do everything that it can to support the continued use of cash, which is so important to some of the most vulnerable people in our society?
I thank the honourable member for that point. Cash remains the second most commonly used form of payment in the UK, and we remain committed to ensuring access to cash for individuals and businesses. That's why we have got a commitment to 350 banking hubs, so that cash remains available to people. Thank you.
Mark Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to welcome the Minister to place, particularly sat alongside the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I welcome the points that have been made with regard to resilience in public services, but can the Minister assure me that similar efforts are being made to ensure resilience when it comes to IT with regard to defence?
I thank my honourable friend for that contribution, and as I said in answer to a previous question, as soon as this government was elected, we took immediate steps to start legislating to better protect all our public services and the third-party services that they use through the Cybersecurity and Resilience Bill, which will be coming to Parliament.
Jim Shannon.
Deputy Speaker, can I first of all welcome the Minister to her place, and I think some congratulations are due to the Honourable Lady, for I understand the Honourable Lady was in charge of the elections for the Labour Party, so much of the success that there was over there, the Honourable Lady can take some credit for that. It's good to see a reward for the endeavours for hard work. Well done. When it comes to airlines, 171 flights cancelled, of which some of my constituents were stuck in London, couldn't get home to Belfast. When it came to banks, some of my constituents were out in the shops. They were buying their goods and they found their credit cards didn't work because the system was down. When it comes to the health system, and just to give you some effective data, the Department of Health in Northern Ireland said that hospital services in around 2/3 of GP surgeries faced problems. There was problems with patients in operating theatres, accessing staff rosters, and the whole system was an absolute chaos. So can I ask the Honourable Lady this question? Yeah, if I can. Does the Minister not agree that the issue has underlined the necessity of ensuring that we are prepared for cyber breakdown, whether that is intentionally done as an attack or unintentionally done? And would the Minister outline perhaps our preparedness for situations such as this, as well as our resilience in moving forward from those type problems for all parts of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Thank you.
I thank the honourable member for his kind comments, and can I just say that I'm sorry to learn of his constituents who were unable to get flights home or were unable to get GP appointments. I've talked in the statement about resilience going forward and making sure that we expand our cyber resilience, putting regulators on a stronger footing and getting a clear picture of cyber threats and how they can be dealt with. And he raises some very important points about that.
House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This was an extremely serious incident, which I suspect may well be detectable in the next GDP figures that we see coming out of the ONS. But I had two questions. In her statement, the Honourable Lady said she was pleased to say that government services and the online services that government provides were and remain largely unaffected. Could you just tell us which were in fact affected, or was largely just a euphemism for not affected at all? And secondly, it's quite difficult for members to get a handle on the full impact and spread of this particular contagion. Will she commit to lay in the House some kind of report that details the sectors that were affected, how seriously they were affected, including government systems, and whether and how there will be any resolution in the future? Because obviously we need to report to our constituents that in future these things are less likely to occur.
I set out the impact that the incident had on, for example, GP services, but things like the emergency services remained unaffected as far as we are aware. We are undergoing the lessons learned from the incident, and I'm sure we'll report back on that once that's been completed.
Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. GPs in my constituency of Maidenhead were affected on Friday like so many others, and I'd like to thank them for the work they did when, even though patients weren't able to get test results and appointments were missed, they managed to make sure that people received the best care possible. What assurances can the Minister give me about the lessons learnt from Friday so that patients can continue to receive the care they need when they need it?
I welcome the honourable gentleman to the House and place on record my thanks to the GP surgeries in Maidenhead who have done what they can to make sure that disruption for patients were at a minimum. We will be undertaking the lessons learned exercise from this, which I hope will offer some reassurances to his constituents along with the bill that will be going through Parliament.
Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm aware that the Minister is new to her role, so I'm going to ask her to consider things rather than to commit to doing things. Will she please consider continuing with the annual statement to Parliament on civil contingencies and risks that was committed to by the previous government? Will she also consider, when she's looking at the Cyber Security and Resilience Bill, assessing whether there is widespread use of certain software or hardware that could cause mass outages in the event that it is affected, such as in Crowdstrike? I'm not aware that we've seen a kind of analysis of that in previous outputs by the Cabinet Office, and I think it would be incredibly helpful for us to be aware of where those risks are.
I thank the honourable member for those suggestions and very happy to consider the points that she has raised.
I cannot be the only member who thinks how proud Mr and Mrs Reeves must be today.